Welcome, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. Andrew stood in our kitchen in Houston, grinning while his girlfriend hid behind him, and told me in front of his cousin and my own sister that I was too desperate to keep a man, so I made up an affair to get attention. Then he laughed when she called me crazy and said I was jealous of a real woman. They'd already moved some of his clothes out before I got home. My name was on the lease, but the humiliation was all mine. I remember my hands shaking so hard I dropped my keys. Here's how it happened. Andrew and I met at a food truck lot near 3rd Ward on a hot Friday night, both reaching for extra napkins at the same time. He cracked a joke about me guarding the sauce table like it was family property, and I laughed harder than I meant to. He had a clean haircut, patient eyes, and a voice that made everything sound easy. We sat on a curb eating jerk tacos and talking about nothing important, favorite old R&B songs, bad bosses who made the best potato salad at Thanksgiving. I liked that he listened. I liked that he remembered details. I liked that he made me feel seen. The first few months were sweet in a way that sneaks up on you. We took Sunday drives to Galveston just to watch the water and argue playfully over music. He sang loud and off-key to Anita Baker, and when I told him to stop murdering classics, he clutched his chest and said, "This is art, baby." I would bring my own speaker just to save the mood. Once a seagull stole his fries, and he chased it in flip-flops while I laughed so hard I cried. He came back out of breath, missing a sandal, and still tried to kiss me like he was smooth. Andrew wasn't rich, and I wasn't looking for rich. He worked in operations for a logistics company and talked like he wanted stability more than flash. I was doing billing at a medical office, tired but proud of paying my own way. We built a regular life fast. Grocery runs, cheap date nights, folding laundry while watching crime shows. He'd dance with me in the kitchen when I cooked, turning a burnt grilled cheese into a whole, slow jam moment. I thought that kind of ordinary joy meant safety. I thought kindness in private meant character. I did not understand yet how performance and truth can wear the same face. The first crack showed up as little disrespect wrapped in humor. He started teasing me in front of people, then calling me sensitive when I didn't laugh. "Don't be mad. I'm just playing," he'd say after joking about my clothes, my job, my cooking. At his cousin's cookout, he told everybody I still needed GPS to find confidence, and folks laughed while I smiled like a fool. I told him later I didn't like being made into the punchline. He kissed my forehead and said, "Baby, you know I adore you." I wanted peace, so I swallowed it. That became a habit. Then came Simone, the woman from his job. Black, polished, older than me by a few years. Always put together like she woke up winning. Andrew first mentioned her casually, talking about work projects and deadlines. Then her name started showing up everywhere. Simone said this. Simone handled that. Simone's husband is always traveling. He said it in a way meant to sound harmless. I even met her once at a company happy hour downtown. She hugged me too long, looked me over, and said, "Oh, you're sweet." Andrew talks about how emotional you are. I laughed because I didn't know yet she was testing how much I would tolerate. Andrew changed slowly enough to make me doubt myself. He kept his phone face down. He showered as soon as he got home. He started saying I was doing too much anytime I asked a basic question. We used to talk late into the night. Now he'd scroll and grunt. Some nights, he came home smelling like a perfume I didn't own, warm and floral, and he'd claim it was from hugging coworkers goodbye. I knew what I felt, but I had no proof, and proof matters when somebody is already building a story that you are dramatic. He started laying that groundwork before I even knew war had started. The humiliation got cruel when he began doing it publicly. One Saturday at brunch in Midtown with our friends, he told a story about me checking his location like a parole officer, which wasn't true. I asked him why he was lying, and he smirked and said, "See, this is what I mean." Everybody got quiet in that awkward way that burns worse than laughter. My friend Tasha texted me later, asking if I was okay, but she stopped checking in after a while too. Andrew was charming when he wanted to be. I was tired and hurt. Guess who sounded more believable? I found a first real clue by accident, like bad news usually arrives. Andrew left his gym bag in the car and asked me to grab his charger. I reached in and found a receipt from a boutique hotel near the Galleria, 2 cocktails, late checkout, and a room service breakfast for 2. The date was a Wednesday morning when he told me he was on a warehouse audit in Katy. My chest went cold. When I confronted him, he didn't panic. He looked irritated, like I'd interrupted him, and said the receipt was for a client meeting. "You think business people don't drink?" he asked. Then he laughed in my face. I tried to leave then. I really did. But heartbreak is messy, and Andrew knew exactly how to reel me back. He came home with flowers and my favorite peach cobbler from that soul food spot on Alameda. He apologized without apologizing, said work pressure had him acting off, said he loved me, said I was his piece. He put on our old playlist and pulled me into the kitchen, swaying and kissing my forehead like before. For 1 stupid hour, I let myself remember the man from the food trucks and seagulls. That's the thing about emotional cruelty. It borrows yesterday's tenderness to keep today's damage alive. The truth came in pieces, and each piece cost me something. I saw a text preview on his lock screen one night. "Miss you already. Tell your girl to calm down." No name, just a heart emoji and confidence. He snatched the phone so fast he nearly dropped it. We fought, loud and ugly, and he called me insecure, childish, and embarrassing. He told me no man would stay with a woman who always needs reassurance. I cried in our bathroom with the faucet running so he wouldn't hear. The next morning he acted normal, kissed my cheek, and asked if I could wash his work shirts. That's how disrespect settles in, daily. I finally got confirmation from someone I didn't expect. Miss Etta, an older woman in my building who noticed everything and minded nothing. She stopped me near the mailboxes and asked, careful but direct, if Andrew had a twin. I said no. She pursed her lips and told me she'd seen him twice getting dropped off late by the same woman in a silver Lexus, all smile and thigh, as she described it. I laughed through my pain because only Miss Etta could phrase betrayal like a weather report. Then I thanked her and went upstairs and sat on the floor for an hour, because my body knew before my mind accepted it. I confronted Simone at Andrew's company holiday mixer in December, and I still regret doing it there, but I was breaking. I asked to speak privately. She looked me up and down and said, loud enough for nearby people to hear, "If this is about your insecurities, please keep me out of your domestic drama." Andrew rushed over like I was the problem, put a hand on my arm, and told me to leave before I made a scene. People stared. One man actually smirked. I left shaking, mascara running, hearing Simone say behind me, "She needs help." They had rehearsed that dynamic. Her polished him calm, me hysterical. After that night, the isolation got worse. Andrew told his family I was accusing him of sleeping around because I couldn't keep a job stable, which was another lie. His aunt stopped inviting me over. His cousin posted vague quotes online about women who destroy good men with paranoia. Even my sister, who should have had my back, said maybe I needed to approach him softer. Softer, as if betrayal responds to softness. I started going to work, coming home, and sitting in silence with the TV on low just to hear another human voice. I was losing weight. I was losing sleep. I was starting to believe their version of me. Then came the deepest cut. Andrew moved Simone into my life before he moved out of it. He began staying out for days, then returning only to shower and change clothes. One afternoon, I came home early and found Simone in my kitchen wearing one of my robes, stirring coffee like she paid rent. She looked at me and smiled, slow and disrespectful. Andrew came out of the bedroom and said, "You need to stop acting territorial. We're done. Done." Like a meeting adjourned. I screamed, "I admit it." Simone laughed and said, "This is why he outgrew you." I had never felt smaller. That night was the one I opened with, the cruel kitchen scene where they blamed me and mocked me in front of witnesses. Andrew had invited his cousin over on purpose, I realize now, so he could control the narrative. My sister had come because I begged her to. Instead of defending me, she stood there confused and embarrassed while Andrew said I was lying about the affair and trying to ruin his career. Simone added, "My husband and I are solid. She's projecting because she can't keep a man." I wanted to disappear. Andrew laughed when I cried. That was the moment something inside me finally hardened into survival. I moved out within 2 weeks. Not because I was wrong, but because staying there was killing me. I found a tiny apartment in Charlotte through a friend from college who managed a property. I transferred jobs to a clinic billing office and drove east with my clothes, a lamp, and a box of kitchen stuff. The first night, I sat on an air mattress eating takeout noodles with a plastic fork and listening to the upstairs neighbors argue about whose turn it was to take the trash out. I laughed for the first time in months. Not because life was good, but because nobody in that room hated me. Charlotte didn't heal me overnight. I still woke up at 3 a.m. replaying things I should have said. I still checked Andrew's social media from fake pages, torturing myself with pictures of him and Simone at steakhouses and rooftop bars. He looked proud. She looked smug. People in the comments called them a power couple. My stomach would knot so hard I'd lose my appetite. One Sunday after church, I sat in my car and cried because the pastor preached on forgiveness and I wasn't anywhere near it. I didn't want to forgive. I wanted truth. I wanted consequences. I wanted somebody besides me to bleed. Therapy saved me, and not in a pretty movie way. My therapist, Dr. Renee, was a black woman in her 50s with reading glasses and zero patience for my self-blame. She stopped me mid-sentence one day and said, "He cheated. He lied. He humiliated you. Why are you cross-examining yourself?" I stared at her and started ugly crying. Week by week, she helped me name what happened. Emotional abuse, gaslighting, public shaming, coercive disrespect. Naming it did not erase it, but gave me my mind back. She also made me do annoying things like sleep schedules, walking, journaling, and eating real food before noon. It worked. As I got steadier, life got unexpectedly funny again. My neighbor, Mr. Leon, an older widower from Durham, would leave ridiculous notes by my door when packages came. Federal evidence secured. Cookie tax accepted. I started baking just to make him laugh. At work, a nurse named Kiera became my friend after I spilled coffee on my own shoe during a staff meeting and whispered, "At least it wasn't on payroll." She snorted so loud the manager stopped talking. We started doing Thursday dinners at a little black-owned spot with live jazz. I wasn't glowing. I wasn't over it. But I was human again. I also got serious about money, partly because betrayal taught me what a penance costs. I took an online certification in revenue cycle management after work, studied on weekends, and stopped impulse buying comfort I couldn't afford. My apartment stayed plain, but my savings account stopped wheezing. I switched my phone number, deleted old photos, and blocked Andrew on everything. That block felt like a ceremony. Quiet, private, powerful. No speech, no dramatic caption. Just a hard boundary. Around that time, I learned from a mutual friend that Simone's husband lived mostly in Atlanta for consulting work. "They're still married?" I asked. The friend raised an eyebrow and said, "Technically." The truth started boomeranging 6 months later. A woman I knew from Houston, Nia, called me out of the blue. She worked in accounting at Andrew's old company and said, "I need to ask you something weird." Her voice was careful. She told me there was an internal audit happening because expense reports had gone missing and reimbursements didn't match travel logs. Simone's name kept coming up. So did Andrew's because he approved vendor deliveries tied to some of the same dates. Nia said she remembered me mentioning suspicious hotel receipts and wanted to know if I still had anything. I did. I had kept everything in a folder I couldn't bear to throw away. I sent copies of what I had. Hotel receipts, screenshots, dates, and one voicemail where Andrew admitted he was with coworkers on a night he claimed to be out of town alone. I didn't add commentary. I didn't beg for justice. I just emailed the documents and went to work. A week later, Nia called again, whispering from a stairwell like she was in a crime show. She said a forensic accountant had been brought in because someone outside the company, Simone's husband, Marcus in Atlanta, had hired counsel after noticing money transfers and credit card charges that didn't make sense. The affair and the fraud were tangled together like wires. What happened next was not dramatic in a cinematic way. It was better because it was real. Simone didn't confess and break down. She denied everything and called people jealous. Andrew stuck beside her and kept saying I was behind some smear campaign, even though I had not spoken to him in months. Then the company pulled badge access, froze accounts, and started termination proceedings. Marcus filed for divorce in Fulton County, and, according to Nia, attached financial records that made Simone's lies hard to breathe through. Andrew was fired within days for falsifying approvals and violating policy. No remorse, no humility, just anger and blame, same as always. The part that stunned me was how fast arrogance turns into consequences when paperwork enters the room. Andrew had always talked like charm could fix anything. It couldn't fix a documented timeline. It couldn't fix flagged reimbursements and signatures and surveillance logs from vendor docs. Nia said he called former coworkers nonstop trying to get references, but nobody wanted to touch it. Simone, still defiant, reportedly told people she was the victim of petty women and controlling men. Then charges came down related to fraud and misuse of company funds. I sat in my car in the clinic parking lot after hearing that and just exhaled for a full minute. I didn't celebrate online. I didn't post cryptic quotes. I didn't call Houston to say, "See, I told y'all." I wanted to bad. Instead, I went home, made salmon and rice, and ate dinner at my small table while Jazz played from my phone. Then I cried, not because I missed Andrew, but because the truth had finally stood up in the room and I no longer had to carry it alone. There is a grief in being vindicated late. You're relieved, yes, but you also mourn the months you spent doubting yourself. I let both feelings sit with me without rushing either one away. A year after I moved, my life looked plain from the outside and beautiful from where I sat. I got promoted to lead billing specialist, then moved into compliance work after finishing another certification. I bought a modest condo in Charlotte with a little balcony and a view of trees instead of parking lots. On Saturday mornings, I drank coffee outside and watched cardinals hop around the railing like they paid HOA fees. Mr. Leon still left jokes, now by text. Kiera and I still did Thursday dinner. My peace wasn't loud, but it was earned. I no longer explained my boundaries to people committed to misunderstanding me. Romance came back soft, not flashy. I met Devin at a bookstore in Noda when we both reached for the last copy of a poetry collection, and he said, "You can have it if you promise not to pretend the ending was clear." I laughed and told him the ending was the whole point. He was patient, funny, and the opposite of performative. On our third date, he burned the garlic bread and blamed the ancestors distracting him, and I laughed so hard I snorted water through my nose. He didn't flinch when I told him what Andrew did. He just said, "That was cruelty, not love." I heard one final update about Andrew through the same Houston grapevine that once swallowed me whole. He had moved in with a cousin after losing his apartment and was bouncing between temp jobs because nobody in logistics wanted the risk. Simone's case was still moving through court, and she was still, apparently, blaming everyone but herself. No apology ever came. Not from him, not from her, not from the people who watched me get shamed and said nothing. I made peace with that. Accountability doesn't always arrive as remorse. Sometimes it arrives as a closed door, a ruined reputation, and a life they thought they were too slick to lose. If there's a lesson in my story, it's this. When someone humiliates you to protect their lies, your first job is not to win the crowd. It's to protect your mind. I wasted too much time trying to prove my pain to people who benefited from doubting me. The truth came anyway, on its own clock, through records and consequences and the weight of their own choices. What saved me was not revenge. It was private rebuilding. Therapy, work, discipline, laughter, new love, and a home where peace lives. Let liars perform. Let cruel people stay cruel. Build quietly until your life no longer fits in their version of you. If you love stories that make you gasp, laugh, and whisper "no way" in the same minute, hit subscribe because the next one is even worse.